Greetings, dear Earth family. Welcome to Ascension Stories. Today we have Keneya. She is an astrologer of 12 years and has a substantial YouTube following. And I would like to welcome her first. Hi, Keneya.
Hi, Natasha. Thank you so much for having me.
How are you today?
Oh, I'm great. I'm great. Down here in Australia, where I'm coming from, it is a glorious day. And today we're actually celebrating Anzac Day, which is the remembrance of a battle that was fought in World War I. So we're all on holiday in Australia today, and everybody in Australia loves holidays. So it's happy times.
Well deserved.
Yes.
You guys are, I feel like, I don't know, in a way, pioneers energetically, personally speaking.
Quite possibly, yeah. Just sorry to dive straight into astrology, but as you mentioned that the chart of Australia has a lot of indicators for a pioneering spirit. So, as does the American chart as well. So,
Yes.
Yeah, very true.
Totally. Both of us.
Yeah,
making the way, making it happen. So, tell us a little about yourself.
So thank you for the lovely introduction as well. I am an astrologer. I've been practicing astrology for many, many years now. And I've begun a YouTube channel in 2017 that has been such a delight to me, where I give forecasts every week for each sign, and I share a lot of astrological knowledge in sort of teaching sessions as well. So it is my passion. My passion is to share the knowledge of astrology with people so that they can be empowered to know themselves better, and that they can live, more full and rich lives, because we are functioning, as I'm sure you know, in an energetic universe, and astrology is energy. So if we can understand how those energies are working and interacting with us, and I believe we're vessels of energy, then we can make wiser choices for our life and end up living more fulfilled experiences here on earth based on an understanding of who we are in an energetic universe. So that's really where I'm coming from with the astrology that I practice. I have a website where I do readings for people. I have a couple of other astrologers who work for me there. I also have a past life regressionist and a tarot card reader who also collaborate with me. And so we have a lot going on through my website, but it's great fun, and it's great to be a part of the awakening community.
Yes, thank you so much for letting us know some of the details, and thank you so much for being part of the the awakening community. We're so important. We are holding the keys technically to our sovereignty, to our freedom as a collective.
True.
Yeah.
So true. And it's an exciting time. As we were talking before we started this recording, it's a very exciting time to be alive and see many people awakening to truths that have been hidden for thousands of years. And things are coming to light now in ways that they haven't before. So even though these times are difficult, we're seeing so much knowledge come into the public domain. And that's just exciting to see and to be a part of, I've got to say. Astrology and astrological knowledge is a part of that awakening process too. So as is your work that you do. So very exciting.
Thank you so much. So I heard a quote, and I'm gonna just paraphrase it, something along the lines of that it isn't millionaires that follow astrology, it's billionaires, because like
that's true.
It's all energetic, and you work with the energies, you work with the cycles. So it's like you're smart enough, you understand that you should pay attention to that kind of thing. Very important.
Absolutely. What is not commonly known, like I was raised in a literalist Christian family where astrology was demonized, and it was, absolutely forbidden. You were going to hell if you practiced astrology. And that's a message that's been put out there by the church with an agenda behind it, because the church, particularly the Catholic Church, utilizes astrology more so than any other organization on earth, except for maybe Wall Street. And so, it's been a mechanism for them to gain the power that they have over people right now, through, religion and what have you. And yet they're denying people, through the condemnation of astrology, the ability to access that powerful tool themselves. So, yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know how I got onto that tangent, but but it is,
Beautiful.
yeah, and so to me, it's so exciting to see people embracing astrology, because there's been a resurgence of astrology in the world, particularly since Pluto moved through the sign of Scorpio, and a lot of the millennial generation were born with Pluto in Scorpio, as I believe you were. I'm just checking your chart here while we chat. No, Pluto was almost in Scorpio when you were born. So it's the generation sort of coming after you, and they're really, really keen on astrology and excited by astrology. And so again, there's that wakening up to these ancient truths that is coming through that energetic cycle.
Beautiful. I love it. I had no idea that Wall Street used astrology.
Yeah, they do. Financial astrology is really, really fascinating and quite a complex component of astrological research. Yeah. And so, like you said, the billionaires use it. And there are combinations that you can have in your chart that indicate being a billionaire. Obviously, Bill Gates has that combination. Here's one example, but basically you can't be a billionaire almost without it. It's the conjunction of Jupiter and Pluto that causes that to be the case. If you've got that in the birth chart, you are very likely to have financial success in the world. And interestingly, we had a conjunction of Pluto and Jupiter last year. So let's see in about 20 or 30 years' time, if there's a brand new bunch of millionaires on the horizon that are, going to take over from the old billionaire set, perhaps. But yeah, the financial astrology, as you're alluding to, is very, very interesting, as is the way the church has used astrology as a power mechanism. So it is used in these high levels. The royal families, they all use astrology. Princess Diana actually had a personal astrologer who, and this is just an interesting bit of gossip, if you like, but her personal astrologer has been discredited, or she's lost her certification as an astrologer, because she went to the media and revealed a lot of stuff about Princess Diana. So there's the lack of client discretion there. But yeah, Princess Diana was an absolute advocate for astrology, or lover of astrology, as are all the royal family. They all have their particular astrologers that work for them, and there's a lot of privacy and security around those things and who's advising who. But yeah, it's prolific.
Yeah, thank you for all that info.
Love all the goss.
I love it. I love knowing, understanding, seeing more of the big picture. Beautiful. So,
and that's what astrology does, Natasha. I'm sorry, I get really passionate about astrology, but that's what it is. It's revealing the big picture, because it's looking at the universe at its largest scale and how that interacts with us. It's the macrocosm and the influence of the macrocosm on the microcosm. So it's very exciting field. Yeah, big picture. I love it.
How do you feel about those people that I'm all about self-empowerment, all about it, obviously, sovereignty, self-empowerment, not having people have influence on us, as sovereign beings and everything. But then I feel like there's people that out there that take a little too far, and they try to deny the existence of the influence these extremely large and energetic bodies have on us. How do you feel about that? I think it's silly in a way.
Well, yeah, it breaks my heart, actually, because it's really sticking your head in the sand about truths that are out there. And I know that like a lot of this sticking their head in the sand is coming because of what is considered mainstream acceptable scientific knowledge. And so, they're doing what they think is right. They're doing what they think is truth. And I guess, look, when it boils down to it, each to their own, as we were again talking before we jumped on the record, everybody wakes up in their own good time, don't they? Everyone sees the truth in their own good time. And quite frankly, when I was a literalist Christian, I was very adamantly against astrology myself until I went through a crisis in my life. I went through a divorce and became a single mother. And I was like, why did this happen to me? You know, how come I'm in this position when I've done everything right? You know, I've, made the wise choices and been a good girl and done things by the book, and it hasn't worked out for me. Why? And it was only going through that dark night of the soul experience that I realized there's more to life than what we see or what we're told or what we're conditioned to believe. And as I looked into things and started to explore astrology, because I thought, there might be something in this that might give me an answer that I haven't got previously in all the things I've been exposed to in my life. As I did so, I did find answers. I found that everything began to add up and make sense when I started seeing it through the lens of astrology. And one of my favorite astrologers, I'll just quote him, Stephen Forrest is his name. And he says that he's never yet met anyone who doesn't believe in astrology who actually knows anything about it. And I think that's so true. The people who decry it, or the people who don't understand that energetic bodies are having an influence on us here on earth, they actually haven't really looked into it. Because once you do, it's undeniable. You cannot not believe once you really do the research and come to understand what astrology is truly all about. I mean, seriously, Natasha, all we have to do is to go out and sit on a beach on a summer's day, and, there all afternoon. If we don't put sunscreen on, we come home and we know that there's an energy interacting with us right there. Our skin is red and we're burnt to a crisp, or I have very pale English skin. So I get burnt when I'm out in the sun. And there's an energetic interaction already. I mean, we are discovering all the time new means of energy in the universe, radio waves, microwaves, etc. And these are changing our lives. What do we yet to discover that the planets are generating in influence upon us here on Earth? I mean, we're on as a collective of humanity on a progression towards more understanding all the time of how the universe works. And I think it's a matter of time before science catches up with what astrology already knows. I mean, we see the effects of the astral energies. We just haven't learned how to measure them yet scientifically.
Yeah, absolutely. Just because we can't physically see something like a sunburn doesn't mean it's not there. X-rays, we don't see them, but there is a physical difference. But there's plenty of other things that we don't see.
Yes, exactly.
Wind we don't see, but obviously there is wind because the trees are swaying, the leaves are moving.
That's right. And there's obviously UV rays that we can't see, but it's having an effect on our skin, Exactly. And there are other energies that are having effect on our psyche, on our life experiences, on, our personality. Like it's so deep and rich, astrology. So I'm waxing lyrical about how much I love it, but I do, because it influences every area of our lives and of society. I mean, there's a lot of specialists in astrology. There's obviously financial astrologers working for Wall Street who are specialized in the financial side, but there's medical astrology, relationship astrology, there's karmic astrology. There's people who've done research by regressing their clients as a past life regressionist and just gathering information of what people generally see when they've got a chart configuration like X, Y, or Z, and correlating past life regression experiences to what is showing up in the chart. Karmic astrology is very fascinating. I love it. Yeah. But I could go on and on. There's just so many broad fields of astrology that you can apply to any and every area of life.
For sure. Looking forward to touching upon the subject of karmic astrology. But first, I really would like to hear your awakening journey, your ascension journey.
Yeah, well, I've kind of touched on it a little already. I was raised in a Christian family, and it was a loving family, beautiful family. I'm very grateful for my childhood. Not everybody gets to have a blessed childhood, and I consider that I did. And because I did, I probably stayed in the mindset of very dogmatic literalist Christianity for a lot longer than maybe other people would. I was around 34, 35 when everything changed for me. Probably around the age of 29, actually, I started to question things. And then that sort of went on for a couple of years. And then I sort of made the break. But I'd been to Bible college and have a degree from Bible college, amongst a couple of other degrees that I have as well. And I was passionate about Christianity and faith, and I've always had this a belief system and a belief in a higher power, or the wisdom of the universe, like that. That's always been there, ingrained in me, and so I'm grateful for what that upbringing, where I was allowed to practice a faith and allowed to explore a faith. I'm grateful for that. I just feel that some of what I was taught, probably a lot of what I was taught, was quite brainwashed kind of perspectives on the world, and we weren't really encouraged to explore other options, and that I think is sad. I think people should be able to discover for themselves, what is truth for them, and go down whatever path that happens to be that their soul desires, be it a religion, or be it exploring New Age subjects, or Gnosticism, or esoterica. Whatever is quite an important thing for every human to experience, because that's how we learn and that's how we grow. So it wasn't until I was around 29, and I happened to be watching a BBC documentary called Son of God, and it was a secular documentary trying to explain the life of Jesus, and not sort of trying to prove whether he was a real person or not, but just saying, well, look, this is what life would have been like back in the day, and if Jesus did exist, then this would justify it, and this would justify it, and so on. And in this documentary, the presenter talked about the in the Bible, the Star of Bethlehem, and how it was leading the wise men to find Jesus. And he presented the argument that the wise men were not just kings that happened to jump on their camels and trot across the desert following a star that was just bobbing along, and the star was not a comet, and so on. He presented the argument that the wise men who came from the East were actually astrologers who knew the sky, watched the skies, understood the movement of the planets and the cycles of the planets and the combinations. And they realized that in their research that come a certain date, there was going to be a very important configuration that presented itself in the sky. We're having a very important configuration presenting itself in the sky right now. You may have heard of the planetary lineup that's occurring in the sky. We have Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Neptune, and the moon, as we're recording this, currently all in the sign of Pisces, lining up in a row. And that hasn't happened since, I think, 10,000 and something or other, 1,000 years ago. It's so rare to have this planetary lineup. And this is the kind of thing that the wise men observed was happening at the time Jesus was born. And this is what this documentary presented, that there was a very rare planetary configuration and lineup. And so the astrologers knew, this is special. Whoever's born under this energy is going to be living a rather profound life. And so it was in that knowledge that the wise men who came from the East, according to the Bible, then realized, okay, so Bethlehem is where this is going to be viewed most powerfully, where the energy of this alignment is going to be particularly strong. Because just to give you a bit of astrology 101, astrology is very locationally dependent. Wherever you are affects how the planets can configure, and it's very geocentric. Your place on the earth influences how the planets play out for you. So they realized Bethlehem was going to be significant, and therefore they traveled to Bethlehem for the birth of Jesus. Now, this to me was a brand new idea. I had never ever considered that astrology would be something so historic, so complex, so significant. And the very fact that
Biblical.
It's biblical. Oh, all the Bible is astrological, which I never knew. Right. And so this documentary just really caused me to think, oh, hang on, maybe there's something in this astrology stuff that I've been missing all these years, taking the Bible literally when I should have actually been seeing it astrologically. And so from that point, I started researching. And the more I researched, the more truth I found. And then, as I said, I hit a rough patch in my life where my marriage fell apart, and I began to question. And once again, the truths that were in astrology really hit home. But when I came to know my astrology chart, Natasha, it was amazing to me. I realized this was part of my destiny all along, was to understand astrology, and that I'd probably done it in a past lifetime or many past lifetimes. It's something that has, it's something that's just come naturally. Yeah. So it was just part of the mission for me here in this life. And so the waking up process, the ascension process, was to just get back to myself, back to who I probably have always been. And that's the universe just aligned certain experiences to help me get there. And one of those experiences was the hardship of being a single mom and being divorced. And so, that in itself gave me a great awakening, that our dark nights of the soul, our difficulties, our hurdles, of which the earth is going through right now, big, massive one. These things are actually designed to help us if we work with them, wisely, by looking for the truth within what's going on. And so I'm very grateful that I went through that hardship, even though it was terrible at the time. I'm very grateful because it led me to a place of enlightenment. And I wouldn't want to go back to who I was before, not for all the peace and calm and, relationship happiness and having had the nuclear family, without having this knowledge, without having this awakening and this new lightness of being that it's brought me, all the other things are immaterial compared to what it's brought me, and the wisdom and the freedom that it's liberation is the best word that it's brought me. So that's a long answer to your question there.
I agree with you. There's so much liberation once you get to know yourself, once you step up.
Exactly. I mean, that's why Plato advocated that know thyself is one of the most profound things a human can do with their lifetime, is to get to know who they are in the world. And in fact, I think Plato might have stolen that saying off the Temple of Apollo at Delphi, but it's still a good adage,
Probably did. He might have been just like, hey, did you know? And then they were like, oh, we'll quote you on that. And he was like,
that's right. Yeah, exactly. I'm sure that's what happened. I'm sure.
Who knows? So let's get back to karmic astrology. And it's part of the research involved into the whole thing.
Well, there's an amazing astrologer named Patricia Walsh. She works in a field called evolutionary astrology. That's a type of astrology that I'm particularly fascinated by, and in fact, most of my astrological teachers have come from that tradition. And evolutionary astrology really got going in the sort of 60s and 70s, actually. So it's a fairly recent brand of astrology, but it draws on very, very ancient truths. And as I said, Patricia is a past life regressionist and an astrologer. And so she regressed thousands of clients. And, have you've had a past life regression before, Natasha?
Yeah. I actually provide those services myself.
You do? That's right. Sorry, ignorance there. Yes, you do. I saw that on your website. Yeah.
It's been a while since I finally made this happen. So
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah. So you'd love Patricia's book. It's called Understanding Karmic Complexes, where she describes what people are seeing in their past lives and how that corresponds to certain positions of planets in the chart. In evolutionary astrology, they believe that every planet tells a story of an evolutionary journey that the soul is on. Just a little bit of astrology 101. Each planet represents something about us and something about our lives. For example, Venus, goddess of love. Venus represents relationships in a person's chart. Mars is sex and passion and desire. Mercury is our intelligence and our ability to communicate and to think well. The moon is our emotions. The sun is our confidence, and so on and so on. Every planet represents a certain facet of who we are. And in evolutionary astrology, every planet represents an evolutionary journey with a certain theme. So, for example, Mercury is what we're here to evolve with over many lifetimes regarding our knowledge and regarding our ability to communicate and speak and write and so on. Venus, obviously, the journey of our soul with relationships. And if we think about it, and I'm probably going to go off onto a really big tangent here, so brace yourself. I believe that the sun is in a binary system with the fixed star Sirius, and it's a roughly 26,000 year cycle. The precession of the equinoxes is what we're talking about here. But it is believed that when the sun and Sirius are in their closest proximity to one another, then mankind is in the golden age. Our level of consciousness is at its highest state. We're using 100% of our brains. We can interact telepathically with one another. We may even be able to dematerialize matter and rematerialize it how we want to. And maybe that's how they built the pyramids. There is this higher state of being for humanity when we are in the golden age. But unfortunately for us, Natasha, that golden age occurred about 12,000 years ago. And we're in the lowest point right now because the sun and Sirius are at their furthest apart. And therefore, we're at our lowest level of consciousness. We only use 10% of our brain. Just look at what's happening in the world. War, manipulation, coercion, greed, need I go on? We are in this low vibration right now because the two energies that have a bearing on this, the sun and Sirius, are so far apart. But fortunately, thank God, we're on the ascension process back up to the golden age again.
I think it's actually kind of a good thing that we're in the lowest, because that's where the dark night of the soul happens. So it's actually good for evolution.
That is so true. And I'm so glad you said that, because we're not just looping around and around, we're spiraling up. Right. So every time we go back to the golden age as a collective and through our reincarnational experiences, every time we go back to the golden age, it's a little bit more enlightened, it's a little bit more empowered, it's a little bit greater than the time before. So I love that idea. But if we look at things in an evolutionary sense, we've just been through a 2,000 to 4,000 year period as a collective of humanity where we've been in some really, excuse my language, but really shitty times, and therefore our souls have been wounded. You've just got to incarnate once on earth to really have a sense of some sort of trauma. And when you've been through this Kali Yuga, as it's called, the low age, then the soul is going to be impacted relationally, emotionally, mentally, etc. And so part of our purpose on earth right now is to heal those wounds and move step by step back to a greater sense of being, a greater sense of empowerment with each subsequent incarnation. So when I do a karmic astrology reading for somebody, I'll be looking at, okay, well, what were these wounds, that may have been experienced? What was the nature of these wounds in our recent incarnational experiences that you are now trying to grapple with as a soul in this lifetime and heal yourself from? And how can you heal yourself? What are some ideas? What are some remedies? So that's how a karmic astrology reading works, and that's the premise or the basis that it's coming from. It's quite fascinating. But yes, back to Patricia. Most of my information is drawn from her work, as well as the work of other evolutionary astrologers who are seeing each planet as a representative of a journey of our soul with a certain facet of our lives.
Wonderful. I love it. Yeah, I need to read her book.
You would love it. It's really great.
Kind of add a little more, an extra layer to my understanding.
Absolutely. It would really be like, she lectures as well, I think, around the United States, and I've been itching to be able to get over there to go to one of her sessions. So she's certainly worth looking up, and she has a great website that you would love it. Yeah,
definitely for sure. So I would also love to know about the features in the chart that show why the healing practices are an important part of the journey.
Oh, okay. Well, like there are in Vedic astrology, Vedic astrology is very big on offering remedies. So as I said, there's different branches of astrology, and the Vedic astrology, it actually comes out of a very ancient tradition that's about 2,000 years old. And that more than any other branch of astrology, the Vedic system likes to offer remedies because, and their belief is that everything is energy, but there's only a certain amount of energy that is available, so to speak. So for example, Saturn is a planet in the chart that represents where we have fears and blockages based on perhaps traumatic past life experiences. So let's say you were standing on the edge of the Grand Canyon in a past life, looking out and enjoying how glorious it was, but all of a sudden you slipped and you fell and plummeted to your death at the bottom of the Grand Canyon. How tragic. Then you reincarnate, and for reasons you can't explain in that lifetime, you're petrified of heights. You won't go out on a balcony. You hate high-rise buildings. You're scared of heights. Why are you scared of heights? Because you've got this psychological boundary or fear that, according to astrology, Saturn puts in place, because he's the planet of fears and blockages. He puts it in place so that we don't repeat the same mistake again. We don't go getting too close to the edge of the Grand Canyon and falling off. So Saturn is fears and blockages, and I've kind of lost a bit of my where I was heading with that. So remedies, that's right. So Saturn puts fears and blocks in our life. And so we realize when we look at Saturn's placement, okay, there's going to be a fear or a blockage or some sort of restriction in our life regarding, maybe it's children, regarding romance, or it might be regarding a career or something like that. How can we get rid of this limitation in our life that we really don't want to be there? And Vedic astrology offers, in this example of Saturn, a couple of remedies. Basically, the remedy for Saturn placements is to do an exchange with Saturn, so to speak. Like, there's only so much energy of restriction and blockage that's flowing to us, that's present with us. And so we can say to Saturn, Saturn, you're putting this restriction, this blockage in this certain area of my life, but you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to choose to restrict and block something of my own accord, my own free will. So maybe every day, not every day, every Saturday, Saturn's day, I'm going to not have caffeine, no coffee for me, no tea, no chocolate. I'm going to fast from coffee. I'm going to fast from a meal, or I'm going to fast or restrict or block social media, or I'm not going to have a sleep in on a Saturday morning. I'm going to make sure I'm up at 6 o'clock and go for a jog every Saturday. I'm going to choose Saturn to restrict something and block something in my life. So you have to direct the energy of blockage into what I choose. And therefore, the idea is you will release what you are automatically restricting and blocking in my life that I don't want you to restrict or block. Does that make sense?
Totally makes sense. I love that. Wow. I do that to myself all the time. I make sure I have like little patterns, little set limitations, etc. Okay, taking my power. Good.
Yeah, and it's taking your power back. That's so true. So that's one of the Vedic remedies for Saturn. There are other remedies too. Saturn is service. So if we can offer service to the realm of life where Saturn sits in our chart, then we're actually channeling the good energy of Saturn more than the difficult energy of Saturn. Mm-hmm. So I have Saturn in my 5th house of children. I actually consider that being a single mum has been very much for me my act of service to alleviate Saturn karma, Saturn blockage, Saturn difficulties, and it certainly has worked that way. So that's just one example. By serving my children, or you might, if you had it in the 5th house, you might raise money for a children's charity or something of that nature would be an act of service to 5th house themes, i.e. children. So it all depends on where Saturn sits in your chart. There are other remedies that Vedic astrology uses, such as the use of crystals for different planetary energies, different foods that you eat, colors that you wear, that sort of thing. But basically the premise is it's energetic. If I am let's say I'm wearing rose quartz, which is a Venus related crystal. Then the idea is that if I've got limitations or difficulties with the Venus energy in my chart, by wearing rose quartz, I'm amplifying the good stuff, the good energy of Venus, because Venus rules rose quartz. So it's all about balancing energies through these remedies that help our soul to rise and to feel more alive. That's the premise or the theory.
Gotcha. Interesting. So I know there's I mean, are there differences? Well, there are differences. What are the differences between the Western astrology and Vedic astrology? I feel like us Westerners are very confused about this. I know I am.
Yeah, of course. Look, I probably the next 24 hours try to explain all the differences. But the number one difference between Vedic astrology is how they utilize the chart. So the in Vedic astrology, they use something called sidereal astrology, which is viewing the actual placement of the stars and the planets in the sky. That's what sidereal astrology generally, in a very basic nutshell, is. In Western astrology, we use something called the tropical system, and it's based on the placement of where the sun is rising at the time of the spring equinox, and that's what actually Stonehenge may have functioned as something of a calendar to determine, okay, well, where are we processionally? The sun is currently rising in the sign of Aries at the spring equinox on the 21st. I think it's the 21st of March every year in Aries. But 2,000 years ago, it was not that way. It was rising in the sign before in Pisces. So, and I might have that wrong. I've just got to, my head's just not, the gears aren't turning properly. So I might have the sign wrong just off the top of my head. But that is what astrology is, Western astrology is basing its understanding of, is where are the planets located according to the sign or the configuration that is the spring equinox, where the sun is rising at the spring equinox. So it's tropical astrology is seasonal, is probably how to put that in a nutshell. So that's the difference. And there's about a 23-degree difference between what the Vedic astrologers use and the Western astrologers use. And to be quite honest, I am sure, Natasha, I haven't made that any clearer for anybody who is wanting to know, but it is quite a complex topic. And it's a much argued over topic in astrological circles. Which one is right and which one is false? The truth be told, we're not going to really have a clear, concise understanding of which one's right or wrong, probably for another 100 or 200 years or so, once the distance between the two charts or the two ways of configuring the chart increases out beyond, say, 30 degrees. And then things are going to be clearer, which one's working and which one's not. I utilize personally the tropical system, and I have various reasons for that I could go into, a long tirade about. But by the same token, I'm fascinated by visual astrology, which takes, it looks at what is actually happening in the sky. Like, for example, in ancient Babylon, they used the visual astrology as well. Mars, when it is bright red in the sky, is indicative, according to ancient Babylonian astrology, of there's going to be a lot of anger, maybe some war that breaks out if Mars is in its very red stage. But when Mars is just sort of a little blinking planet, then he's not so aggressive. Mars is the god of war, obviously. So you can only observe that not on a computer calculated chart, but when you go and stand out in the night sky and look at, okay, well, what does Mars look like here? So a lot of the very ancient Babylonian astrology was based on, are there clouds over the moon right now? What does that mean? Is Mars red? How bright is Jupiter? That sort of stuff. So there are many differences between the fields of astrology, and Vedic to Western mostly is based around what I've just described, sidereal versus tropical. There are other things too, but that's probably the biggest difference.
Wonderful. So next, I would like to ask about how astrology is a powerful tool to help people know themselves, embrace their truth, be at peace with their writing, um, be at peace with wiring, and access the highest version of themselves.
Wow, that's a big question. Do you know what? I'd like to answer that by maybe looking at your chart,
Perfect.
and we can give an illustration that way of how it can be enlightening and empowering to help understand who we are in our journey. So what I might do, I'm just going to share the screen.
I'm always very, very excited
Yeah. Now,
when somebody does my chart. I don't know why, but I just, different perspectives and everything. I love it. And as a matter of fact, when I was younger, because as much of an emotional human that I am, I'm also very, very logical. And that logical part of me was like, well, uh, all these different personality traits could be, with everybody. So like, to me, it was just like, just these reasonings. And then I had my astrology chart read when I was 21, I believe.
oh,
And,
wonderful.
and, I was like, well, see, that's my point. Like, yeah, maybe a little bit, but for the most part, no. But that was because I was so divorced from who I really was. I was suppressed so hard as a child that not at all did that match. So when my friend was telling me about like I'm meant to be a leader, I was just like, no, furthest from the truth. And then as I got older and kind of stepped up into that role, I was just like, interesting.
It was true. Yeah. And that's one of the things that needs to be noted about life and about astrology, is that we are still evolving beings. Just because we've got a certain configuration of our chart doesn't mean that we are going to stay stagnant and stuck in that chart forever. According to one of the theories of Vedic astrology, we're actually moving and progressing into something called the ninth divisional chart, which is the energy we're going to embrace in our next lifetime. And so as we move through this incarnation, we're gradually evolving into this ninth divisional chart energy, which is who we're going to become. So who you are in your earliest childhood is not obviously who you're going to, the same kind of personality and person you're going to be at 30, at 40, at 50, because we change. So
especially if you were suppressed, you're nowhere near.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So this is exciting to me. I mean, your ascension story must be really something worth hearing, because
wow.
if you had so much suppression, then the waking up to who you are and the waking up to your truth must have been quite profound as well.
Yeah, pretty much. And isn't it interesting how my chart is it only, I think, in five consecutive signs?
Let me have a look. Let me share it here.
It's
So can you see that on the screen?
Isn't that weird how like the rest of the chart is empty? And to me, when I saw that, I was like, so what does this mean? I'm lacking all these other energies and I have to like learn really hard, which kind of completely made sense to me in a way, because there was so much from who I was that I was missing. Like there's so many things that I just didn't understand and I had to learn really hard to get.
Yeah.
Lots of life lessons.
Well, what you've got going on here, if you can see the chart, Natasha, you've got, as you said, all the planets are falling in this sphere of the chart. And this is known as a bucket or a basket, not a bucket, a basket shape, or a bowl shape, a bowl shape. You can see it's kind of like that. There's no sort of handle or anything going out into this area of the chart. But what this means when all these energies of planets are only in this side, this half, it means that you actually have a great deal of free will that you can apply to your life. You can, the law of attraction would really work well for you because of this. When we have all the planets on this side of the chart, it means that our life is completely governed by fate. We have so many fated experiences, and we almost can't make a decision for ourselves. The universe will always put us where it wants us to be, and either we're always fighting that or we just let go and let God. But for you, you've got the opposite, because all the planets are here. You can make a choice. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to make it happen. Good or bad, it's up to you. you can, create your life. You can put things out into the vortex, as the Abraham Hicks would say, and see it manifest. So there's a great manifesting potential when we have this configuration that you have. Now, most people have a blend of both. So they've got a sort of a distribution, and a good astrologer would look at what's this distribution like, a distribution of fate and free will in their chart. But sometimes, and it's quite rare, you come across somebody like you who has everything in one side, and I actually have everything in this side. So my life is totally free. I don't get a say. I just have to do what I'm told. And so for me, it was fated. Astrology was going to happen one way or the other. And I just had to, that's what I have to flow with. So it is fascinating in that sense. But just on that topic, something else that I'm seeing in your chart is that currently, see these green planets around the outside here, because just Astrology 101, these little icons are the different planets and where they're located, or where they were located when you were born. But this is where they are currently right now as we're doing this reading. And you can see that all these planets are actually in the hemisphere of fate. So that actually means that it doesn't mean just because you've got all this here that you're never going to have a fated experience in life. Fated experiences in life will come to you, and it's likely that you're experiencing them at the moment. Over the next perhaps even 6 months or so, you might be having some sort of fated experiences that present themselves in your life and really transform things for you. But that's because of this energetic placement of the planets. The thing with your chart is that you have free will with how you respond to those fated experiences. You can, good or bad, as I said, it's up to you. So some fated door might open. Do you step through it or not? It's your choice, Fate meets free will. It's quite exciting actually to see that happening. But the other thing that I love in your chart, I just love it, is this point here. See this? It says SPIC. That is the fixed star Speaker. Some people say Spiker. It all depends on, your pronunciation of where you come from. I say Speaker. But Speaker is the most angelic fixed star. It is, there's only 5 stars that actually sit on the ecliptic plane. The rest are all spread out throughout the heavens. 4 of those stars, the fixed stars, were the ancient royal stars of Persia. So they were, it's Formahat, Regulus, Antares, and Aldebaran. But Speaker is the other star. It's not one of the 4 royal stars of Persia, but it is the most angelic star, and it's sitting right on your ascendant here. It's so just to try and explain a bit of that tropical versus sidereal, you can see it's sitting in the sign of Libra because you're a Libra and rising person. This is the symbol for Libra here, and it's sitting within this framework of the Libran 30 degrees. In sidereal astrology, Speaker sits in the sign of Virgo. So that's it configures the chart differently based on whether you use tropical or sidereal. Anyhow, having Speaker on your ascendant makes you very angel-like, very spiritually oriented, potentially quite creative as well. Speaker can also, at certain times in life when she gets an activation, you can actually create wealth for yourself because she is a wealth star as well. So at some point in life, you have the potential to generate prosperity for yourself. You may have already done so. I hope that's the case. But Speaker on the ascendant is just so beautiful. She's very powerful. She's one of the brightest stars in the night sky. I love seeing that. Also, when I look at your chart, I can see that you've got Pluto here as well. This also gives you a tremendous ability to take your power back at some point in life. And this is what you were describing earlier. Pluto is a planet of regeneration and rebirth. When he is in the first house, this area of the chart represents you and your journey this lifetime. When he's in the first house, he is saying, in this lifetime, you're going to have to take your power back in some way. But usually there will be a loss of power usually in the early part of life, that forces you to learn to stand on your own 2 feet and take your power back again. And you've described exactly that. The suppression in the early part, that's what Pluto's all about. He is quite a difficult planet. Like he causes a lot of trouble, quite frankly. He's the planet of the dark night of the soul. And if you're into mythology, you know he's the god of the underworld. So when we go into our underworld experiences, that's when we lose our power in those dark times. But in those dark times, we have the potential to take our power back and rise up again, like the phoenix from the ashes. Pluto represents all that symbology. And the fact that it is so close to your ascendant means this is the journey of your life, to experience that, to do that. The really fascinating thing is that in very ancient mythologies, Pluto was known as the god of great wealth, not just the god of wealth. Jupiter is the god of wealth, but Pluto, the brother of Jupiter in mythology, is the ancient god of great wealth. And that's why when you have Jupiter and Pluto, as I said earlier, connected together in the chart, sitting together in the chart, it's the signature for billionaires, because great wealth meets wealth, and boom, you're going to have something special happen in your life financially. But Pluto here, back to what we're talking about, Pluto is the ancient god of great wealth. And what do we experience, or what can we experience when we go through our underworld experiences? The great wealth of knowledge, the great wealth that comes to, we don't awaken without going through a darkness, I feel. We have to go through the darkness, Pluto, to get the jewels, to get the insight, the wisdom, the knowledge. And to me, like I said before, that awakening is so much more precious than anything else. I mean, all the money in the world can't buy what that awakening to the truth gives you. To me, that is great wealth.
Yeah.
And you only get it when you go through the dark night of the soul. And that's one of the most deep and profound messages of Pluto. So Pluto is very powerful in your chart and one of the biggest influences in your life. And that's why you've had the journey that you've had. And interestingly enough, you can tell I get very excited doing people's readings, but interestingly enough, Natasha, Pluto rules regression work. And here you are as a regressionist doing, looking into people's past, going into that deep psychological stuff.
And
Pluto is
light. Yep.
Absolutely shining the light and helping. And when we shine the light into the basement of who we are, then there's no darkness. Like the darkness disappears and you'll transform it and you get rid of all those cobwebs down there in the basement by bringing light to it. So I love that you've got that. That's a very powerful signature for you in the chart. The north node of the moon is also very important. That's what the north and south node cause eclipses. And you have your north node in the most blessed house in the horoscope, which is the 9th house. The 9th house is about inspirational figures, gurus, teachers. And with the north node, that's what we're rising up into in life. It's our destiny. It's where we're heading. Your north node is what we call in an exalted state. It's powerful. So when you get to around the age of 42, you're going to have a rocket launch into perhaps being something like a wisdom giver, teacher, guru, mentor to other people, because that's what the 9th house is all about. So you're on the path to that already. But after the age of 42, when the north node of the moon matures, that's when we really start to hit our stride with our destiny, our purpose, our mission. Very, very powerful and very, very beautiful placement that you've got going on there. I don't know how much you want me to keep going. I only just looked at your chart, I must confess, about 5 minutes before we jumped on the call. So I'm just looking at, going as I'm looking, telling you what I'm seeing. That's here. Yeah. So it's a beautiful chart actually for exactly what you're doing, the regression work, but spirituality as well. Also, I'll point out the north node in the 9th house has to do with belief systems as well. But the ruler of the north node, also the north node's in Gemini, and the planet that rules Gemini is Mercury. And Mercury is very auspiciously positioned in the 12th house of how do I describe the house, the 12th house? It's such a profound house, but it has to do with psychology. It has to do with deep truths that come from the divine, the wisdom of the divine. So
that is like my substance.
yes,
Oh,
it's incredibly spiritual, but not in a religious manner. This area of the chart has to do with the wisdom and the truth of like esoterica and metaphysics and
it's
the things.
literally just what I breathe, what you're
Yes.
describing. Wow.
Yeah. So it is your destiny to be a wisdom giver, a teacher, and a person of knowledge with those esoteric things, and the spiritual, metaphysical side of life. I need to just point out that the 12th house has to do with our past lives. It's the house of past lives and past life influences, including our ancestral, not influences, but the ancestors, our spirit guides who are up there pulling the strings, like our angels, if you want to call them that. The 12th house has to do with those sorts of things as well. So the fact that you are interacting with those sorts of energies as a part of what you do, looking into past lives and the influences of past lives, it's all there. Like it is just so strong in your chart to be doing that sort of work as a part of not only what you are naturally gifted to do, Pluto on the ascendant, but also as a part of what your destiny is all about and your purpose for being here is all about. So when you say, well, like, how can astrology empower us? Basically, what I find is that astrology reveals to us time and time again that we're on the path. We know what we're meant to be doing. We know who we really should be. Sometimes we're in denial and we're going down an opposite road that we feel society is expecting us to do. But if we get an astrology reading and it's like, oh yeah, that's me, and it's so true, and then, my God, that's so empowering to know that we're meant to be who we are and we don't have to deny it. In fact, we're thwarting ourselves when we deny our natural astro wiring. I mean, for you, it's imperative that you do this, or else it will feel, like you just said, feel like you can't breathe if you can't be doing this stuff. If you had to go down the corporate business route or something like that, it would be like death to you.
My reaction, even, it literally feels like death. Like anything that's like the right path, the cubicle or whatever, just wow. Yeah.
So astrology is it's so affirming, and in that sense it's empowering, because it's just solidifying who we at our deep core level really know who we are and why we're here. Wow. So it's beautiful. Yeah. And you have a beautiful chart too. You have the sun in Leo. So the sun is where we shine and how we get our confidence. And it's in the 11th house, Natasha. The 11th house has to do with the internet. So one of the things you can do towards achieving your purpose and your mission is to be involved in shining on the internet. Now, it doesn't necessarily say that you're going to have, what's Joe Rogan got 80 million followers or something like that. Like it's not necessarily telling us that that's going to be the outcome, but it's saying that you can build your kingdom. Wherever the sun sits is where we can build our kingdom, by reaching many people through the ability to shine a network over the say the internet, for example. But the 11th house has to do with forming friendships, forming big networks. It's a lot like a spider web, the 11th house. It's like you're connected to this person who's connected to this person who's connected to this person, and it's being able to really build in sort of a networking fashion with friends and connections and so forth. And the internet is obviously a really powerful tool for doing that. So that's why the internet is connected to the 11th house. So yeah, that's another exciting thing that I can see playing out in your life right now. And it's just going to continue to grow as life progresses for you. I might stop the share now and come back to.
I just want to say that that was my favorite astrology reading. Just saying.
I'm glad.
You're in front of me. I'm serious. Also, I remember how long ago was this? Under 10 years ago, I was looking at my own chart, and I'm not in any way like a knowledgeable person when it comes to astrology, like at all. Like just this much.
You know enough.
Barely enough. And I just remember looking, and I got really obsessed with the north nodes and south nodes back a little under a decade ago, and I just got like really, that just was calling to me, because like kind of the direction of your soul, and it just made me so interested in the fact that I had my north node in Gemini, because like technically I was so deeply in the south node Sagittarius, and I was just like,
Yeah.
well, okay, I guess it makes sense, because I was absolutely obsessed with information gathering, learning, understanding, and just gather. I was like, okay, I guess it makes sense, because this is where I'm at right now. But
Yeah.
I was like, I can't even imagine going out there and sharing my knowledge, but I guess that's my path. But
Yeah.
it's interesting where I'm at right now,
You're doing it.
because I'm literally doing it, and it's not like I'm
Yeah.
trying, it's just where I progress to. And it's just,
Yeah.
astrology really genuinely blows my mind once you live and pay attention to
Yes.
all of the clues, and like, hey, here.
Yeah. That's right. That's right.
Exciting.
It's undeniable when you, like I said, when you start looking into it.
Undeniable.
Yeah. And this is the power and the like the truths that have been kept from us for hundreds of years now. I'm so glad people are waking up to the reality of astrology again, because it is empowering. It is just so empowering for us all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me a little more about your, or tell me a little about your Royal Stars Academy.
Oh, I love my Royal Stars Academy. So I've just launched it earlier this year. Because my passion is to teach astrology, and so I'm teaching astrology through the Royal Stars Academy. It's an opportunity for people who just want to perhaps learn the basics. They can come and do the first level of my course, or if you want to become a certified astrologer under the Guiding Star brand, then you can do there's 4 levels to the course. There's introductory, intermediate, advanced, and professional practice. So you can come and learn with me. But at the moment, I'm just offering the introductory level. Next year, I'll be adding the intermediate. The following year, I'll be adding the advanced. And then, so it's a 7-month course. So at the moment, the introductory level is 7 months long, and people are able to study at their own pace. It's sort of through a number of videos and note taking and that sort of thing, some quizzes and what have you that are involved in that. But we also have a meetup, a chat session once a month with all the students who are in the introductory level, where we can share what we've learned or ask questions if we don't understand something with me. So it's been so much fun to have launched that this year. I'm loving it. I'm loving all my students. They're gorgeous people. So yeah.
Yay. Thank you for sharing that. And
thank you for asking me.
of course. I mean, I looked at it and I was like, oh, this is gold.
Yeah.
Other services and other ways for people to find you?
Sure. So my website is guidingstar.astrology.com. The Royal Stars Academy is through Thinkific at the moment, but you can find the link to it through guidingstar.astrology.com as well. And I'm currently about to go on holidays, so I'm not offering readings for the next 3 weeks, but after that, I'm back on board doing readings. So I do readings for people, but I also offer written reports. They're a lot cheaper than my verbal readings, because I think astrology should be available to everybody regardless of price point. So my written reports are they're about $20, $20 to $40. So they're really, really good value. And so there's those 2 things that I offer. I also have an astro shop, because I probably should show you. I make this is an astro wheel that I use in my teaching, and it just shows where all the planets are and the signs, and it's a really good tool to help learn astrology. So I make a smaller version of that I sell through my shop as well for people. As I said, I do work with a past life regressionist and a tarot reader and a meditation coach through my site. But I don't want to take anything away from what you do with your wonderful work. In fact, we should collaborate at some point. Maybe we can talk about that later.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's a wellness hub associated with Guiding Star Astrology too. So plus there's a number of webinars on there that you can take to just learn the basics of astrology, maybe learn how to read your own chart so that it all starts to make a bit more sense. So there's lots of goodies on my website, and of course my YouTube channel. It has currently there's about 15,500 followers who tune in every week to get the reading for their particular sign.
I love it. I love it.
Mm.
So lastly, any advice that you could give to the collective at this point?
Oh, wow. Where do we start with that? Go and study astrology.
There we go.
Really, I mean, I'd have to repeat Plato's adage of know thyself, because that's where it's at. The deeper that you can, it's not about being self-obsessed. It's about just accepting who you are and loving who you are as you are, let's say faults in inverted commas and all, we're here to experience life in this incarnation, the good, the bad, the shadow, the light. Let's just accept it and learn to know ourselves through every little facet of who we are. So yeah, that would be my advice to the collective. Spend time to know thyself. And astrology is a great mechanism for doing that.
Yeah, and most people are confused anyway on this planet. So who are they to tell you that something's wrong, or
That's
society
right.
tell you something's wrong? Because society doesn't know jack. I mean,
Yeah. So true.
you know.
So true. So true. Yeah.
All right, my love. Thank you so much for your time and your wisdom and all the work that you do. And yeah, I will definitely be reaching out, and we'll talk more soon.
Thank you, Natasha. It's been so fun to join you here, and we'll have to connect again. And I'd love to have you on my channel at some point soon too.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, everybody, so much for tuning in. And I will see you next time. Bye for now.
Bye.